Welcome to This Explainer. We're currently staring down a future that is rushing toward us way, way faster than almost anyone actually realizes. Imagine an economic landscape so radically transformed that Wall Street legend Tom Lee is literally predicting the next 2 years will bring the biggest stock market gains of our entire lifetime. That's a massive claim, right? But the foundation for it isn't just software, it's a staggering, highly coordinated build-out of physical infrastructure happening right this second, both down here on Earth and up in orbit. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the biggest gains in history, the disembodied workforce, converting electrons into tokens, the terafab ecosystem, orbital AI data centers, and finally, the magic timing. Section 1. Biggest gains in history. Let's start with the big picture and that incredible forecast from Tom Lee about the post-2026 economy. So when Tom Lee says, watch out, the next 2 years are going to be very big, going to be the biggest gains of the stock market in our lifetime, he isn't just talking about some temporary tech bubble. He's looking at a massive economic ripple effect. We've all seen the huge gains starting at the epicenter with AI chip makers like NVIDIA, right? And then rippling out to software builders like Anthropic and OpenAI. But you see, it doesn't stop there. This wave is expanding outward to hardware companies like Dell, to energy providers, chemical companies, and eventually it's going to wash over the entire economy as every single sector adopts this new technology. To really grasp why this is happening, we need to look at 4 key macroeconomic pillars driving this boom. First, the U.S. economic growth rate is structurally stepping up. We're potentially looking at 4% GDP growth. For the world's most mature economy, that is absolutely astounding. Second, the U.S. is perfectly positioned to be a net exporter of the most valuable tool of the next decade, AI products. Add to that the demographic tailwinds. You've got millennials and Gen Z entering their prime earning years, right alongside a massive transfer of generational wealth. And finally, there's a huge rotation of capital moving from private alternatives back into public markets. Put it all together, and it's basically a perfect storm for growth. Section 2. The disembodied workforce. So, what's actually fueling all this crazy growth? Well, economist Joe Bakhti has a fascinating take on this. He says AI acts as the ultimate economic fuel by rapidly and almost infinitely expanding the labor supply. And this brilliantly illustrates that core economic shift. Think about it. Traditional labor is a huge bottleneck. People need food, they need housing, sleep, high wages, and there's a finite supply of real talent. AI agents, on the other hand, give us a disembodied workforce. Just imagine the economic equivalent of importing 100 million PhD-level workers into the economy. Workers who don't need housing, who grind 24/7 without getting tired, and cost, get this, $20 a day. $20. That is an absolutely absurd economic advantage. Which brings us to a concept called the absolute deflation in labor costs. Simply put, the price of getting complex work done is going to plummet. AI isn't just some new software sector to invest in, it's a fundamental mechanism feeding the entire economy with incredibly cheap, highly qualified labor. When the cost of intelligence drops to basically near zero, it creates massive deflationary pressure on operating expenses. And at the exact same time, it skyrockets productivity and profit margins across the board. Section 3. Electrons into tokens. Now, to actually manifest this invisible workforce, we kind of have to pivot from software to the gritty physical reality of building it. Investor Brad Gerstner captures this perfectly. He uses this fantastic phrase, turning electrons into tokens. You see, to power a limitless, disembodied workforce, software needs an unfathomable amount of physical infrastructure. You literally have to pour the concrete, secure the raw power, cool the massive server racks, and network hundreds of thousands of GPUs perfectly. It is a brutally difficult, real-world engineering challenge. Which leads to Gerstner's bold claim that there is no human being on the planet better at turning electrons into tokens than Elon Musk. Wall Street is heavily focused on Musk right now, and not just because of rockets or EVs. It's because he's proven to be the premier first principles builder of physical AI infrastructure. He actually succeeds at navigating those real-world choke points, power, manufacturing, rapid deployment, that completely stall out other companies. Section 4. The terafab ecosystem. Let's zoom in on exactly what that physical build-out looks like on Earth right now, specifically the staggering stuff quietly taking place in Texas. 3,100 acres. Just to put that into perspective, that's roughly the size of thousands of football fields. Recent deed records show a company linked to SpaceX and XAI is actively scooping up this massive footprint in Grimes County, Texas. And this isn't just for some single giant warehouse. No, this is the groundwork for an entirely new, vertically integrated semiconductor and compute fabrication ecosystem. And the projected upper limit of this ecosystem's total investment? An eye-watering $119 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. This represents the sheer, monumental scale of the terrestrial infrastructure race currently underway to build the physical hardware needed for artificial general intelligence, AI that can match or even beat human capabilities. It's an undertaking of truly historic proportions. So the absolutely crucial point here is speed. Look at traditional industry standards. An advanced chip plant from an industry leader like TSMC takes, 5 to 10 years to spin up in Arizona? Musk's timelines are just on a completely different planet. Take the Colossus AI cluster in Memphis. He brought a massive supercomputer online in mere months. He achieved coherence across tens of thousands of GPUs when experts previously said going beyond 30,000 was straight up impossible. Meanwhile, highly funded traditional attempts, like the massive Stargate project, have faced brutal delays and logistical nightmares. Section 5. Orbital AI data centers. So where do we go when Earth literally runs out of room and power? Well, we look beyond our atmosphere. Terrestrial bottlenecks are quite literally being solved in orbit. Now, I know putting data centers in space sounds like total science fiction, but when you break it down using first principles engineering, it's remarkably solvable, especially for a company that's already building Starlink. You simply take the existing satellite design, scale the solar panels by 5 times for power, scale the radiators by 20 times to deal with the heat, use the space lasers, yes, actual space lasers that they've already perfected, to beam data back to Earth, and just add some radiation shielding to the GPUs. It's actually astonishing how practical it is when you lay it out step by step. And the timeline for this is way more aggressive than the 10 or 20 years the general public assumes. Based on the underlying math and engineering roadmaps, we could see dozens or even hundreds of 100-kilowatt prototype AI satellites in space for testing as early as next year. For context, that's enough power to run a small data center down here on Earth. And by 2028, we could see the very first version of scaled commercial orbital data centers fully deployed and operating. Section 6. The magic timing. Let's look at how this all builds to a perfect convergence. This is where all these distinct threads miraculously pull together to solve a very real, looming crisis. Take a look at this explosive jump. Right now, AI consumes about 7% of total U.S. energy, but projections show that within the next year, that demand is going to spike to 15%. At that level, the United States hits a hard terrestrial energy roadblock. And this isn't just some abstract math problem. It dictates whether this technology can even keep growing. We simply cannot spin up legacy power grids fast enough on Earth to meet the explosive demand of these massive AI clusters. Demand is absolutely going to outstrip physical supply. And this is where the 2028 convergence happens. It is a mind-blowing coincidence. The exact time frame we hit a terrestrial energy wall for AI, when power becomes scarce and impossibly expensive on Earth, is the exact same time frame that the Starship rocket is projected to become fully operational at scale, meaning it permanently unlocks cheap access to literally unlimited solar power and cooling up in orbital space. It's almost magical when you step back and look at it. Decades of seemingly totally disparate independent engineering projects are perfectly converging. You've got 24 years of rocket development culminating in Starship. You have over a decade of neural net data collected from millions of vision-only EVs on the road. You have global scale in solar and megapack batteries. You even have brilliant, rapid software talent alignment, like the recent deal integrating Cursor's coding tech with XAI's underlying models. All these completely separate paths are suddenly colliding right at the starting line of the AI boom. Section 7. Conclusion. Let's wrap up this explainer. We've traced the incredible predictions of massive wealth generation down to the hyper-efficient, deflationary AI workforce, and we've looked at the astonishing physical infrastructure being built right now in Texas and in low Earth orbit to actually support it. I really want to leave you pondering this last point, because this isn't just about tech stocks or rockets. This is about the very foundation of our future economy. When intelligence becomes limitless, when physical labor is vastly augmented by humanoid robotics, and when compute literally scales to the stars, what happens to the economy when almost anything is practically possible? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.